All right, come on in, everybody. Come on in. Hopefully, everybody's doing well so far this evening. All righty. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect tonight's message. Aman. Uh, Hello, everybody. Top of the evening to you. Top of the day, as far as evening to the rising, but top of the evening to you. Hopefully all is well with you. Anak Kofi, hello to servants of Christ, Shalom. Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. We appreciate your presence on today. Some of you have been with us since early rise of Bible study session. Some of you have been with us throughout the day. We still actually, after this, I'm going to be somewhat short on this because I did not have a chance to make sure that we did our Hebrew characters class. So that will be on SOC University on Patreon. So make sure you look for that. And we'll try to make sure that we have a couple other things on Patreon for you as well. Hopefully you guys are making it safe from your destinations. Please be safe on your way home. Praying for you. Thank you so much for being on. We appreciate you. And besides this, I guess we'll see you tomorrow in the rising. But let's go ahead and get started. We're going to say our Bible pledge to get started. And then we're going to get into some stuff that I think is very valuable for us to know. In the meantime, let me say hello to everybody. Hello, everybody on YouTube, on TikTok. We appreciate you if you're with us live or joining us later on. How you doing, Sister Monica, Dee, Sister Nadine, Sister Deborah, Springtime, Carolyn, Lottie, Donnie, everybody, and those who are still yet to come on. We appreciate you so very much. So we'll get ready to do our Bible pledge. If you want to reverence the word of Yah in any kind of way, if you are able to, we appreciate you doing so. How you doing, Brother TJ? How you doing, Sister Akita? Shalom, 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 peace, peace, peace. I guess shalai, shai, shalom. Early to you. But how's everybody doing? Appreciate you. How you doing, Sister Renee? Everybody, we appreciate you. And we thank you guys so much. So we'll go ahead and get started. How you doing, Beck? If Brother Dwayne's on, appreciate you. All right, here we go. How you doing, Chantel? This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible. And this is Yah's word. Hashem Yahweh. Aman. In Yahweh's name. Amen. All righty. So we thank you guys. We appreciate you. Let's go ahead and get into today's message. So we are going to talk about tonight coping mechanisms. Coping mechanisms, right? And I'm actually going to go, I'm coming from online, a site called verywellhealth.com, very, V-A-V-E-R-Y, well, W-E-L-L, health, H-E-A-L-T-H. How you doing, Minister Morel? How you doing, Zahara? How you doing, Beloved Oath Promise? Everybody's coming on. Come on in. How you doing, Cultural Prospect? So I'm coming from verywellhealth.com. I'm just going to do a little bit of reading real quick. So I'm going to just start at the top. Here's the article. So this is at verywellhealth.com. It's called Coping Mechanisms, everything you need to know. Coping mechanisms, everything you need to know. Maybe we'll put this up on Patreon, or maybe we'll put this on YouTube or something for you guys to read as well, or at least have the link. But coping mechanisms, everything you need to know. So here it says coping mechanisms are strategies that help people deal with stress and uncomfortable emotions. Whether you realize it or not, you are using coping mechanisms regularly. These behaviors can help you cope with stress in a positive way or can sometimes be harmful, which I'm very glad that this article brings out, because coping mechanisms, there are positive ones, there are also negative ones, right? And so people who are trying to cope, there's mechanisms or a system of mechanics, a system of things that you have in place, a system of habits that move. And sometimes we don't, and because it's systemic, and we, even if we didn't know, we might have systematically put it in place, or people might have taught us to put things systematically in place purposefully, right? And with intent. Therefore, we might have some things going on that we need to deal with. So watch this. So this article discusses different coping styles, types of coping mechanisms, and ways to improve your coping skills. Now, we won't go through the entirety of it, but I just want to read a little more if we can. So it says, why do we use coping mechanisms? Coping mechanisms help decrease the side effects of stress. The stress response is triggered by the flight or fight role of your sympathetic nervous system. And real quick with the what we call or what is now called flight or fight. So basically, a lot of people don't know, but when your body is stressed, your body doesn't know levels of stress, right? Your body is just stressed. How you doing, Nuke? Right. So so I'll say that again. Your body doesn't really know different levels of stress. Your body just knows stress, right? So your body takes stress, period. So your body, when it's stressed, it doesn't make the differentiation between I'm stressed because I'm trying to pass a test. I'm stressed because somebody might shoot at me. I'm stressed because a bear is chasing me. Your body just knows stress, and it goes into the same manner, right? So if you have little stresses, there's really your body doesn't really do little stresses. It might have a different amount of time and stressed over something, but your body doesn't really know how to differentiate. If I'm stressed, I'm stressed, right? This is why it's important that we pay attention to some of this stuff a little harder, right? So I just want to make that clear because some people be like, "Oh, I'm just a little stressed," but your body doesn't know a little stress, right? Your body doesn't make a difference. Your body's going to do the same thing. For example, like cold, your body doesn't try to figure out, okay, I'm a little cold versus I'm freezing, right? Like if I, or we'll put it like this: if you're cold because the fan is on, or you're cold, yeah, thank you. That's a better way of saying it. Thank you, Holy Spirit. If I'm cold because the fan is on and I don't have covers, or I'm cold because I'm outside and it's almost to the point to where it could snow, or I'm cold because somebody has the temperature up in the car, right? Your body doesn't really know the difference. Your body does the same thing. Your body will start to shut down your extremities. That's why your hands get cold, your fingers get cold, your toes get cold. Your body's going to try to start protecting the core, right? It's going to try to protect the brain, everything down from the brain to what's to the lungs, right? Even the diaphragm to a certain degree, and everything else must go if necessary, right? So if you're cold, that's why you can feel like you're cold and you have the same thing. It doesn't matter if you're outside or you're inside, you're going to shiver, right? Your body doesn't know the difference. It just says cold. This is how we're designed to handle cold. Okay. So same thing with stress. Your body doesn't do, I'm a whole lot stressed. I'm stressed over 5,000 people. I'm stressed because of one person. It doesn't know. It just knows, okay, I'm stressed. This is what we do. And anything in the body, we want to make sure because we say, we'll go like, okay, well, I have the central nervous system, right? I have the nervous system. I have the skeletal system. I have the digestive system. I have the endocrine system, right? I have all these different systems. And the reality is that if one system in your body is jacked, every system in your body is jacked. If one system in your body says we're stressed, every system in the body says we're stressed, right? Respiratory system, etc. Like we keep on going, whatever system we talk about. I think there's 13 in the human body. There, no matter what system we're talking about, when your body is stressed out, your body starts. The whole body is affected. It's like when you stub your toe, right? Your head, right? Your head doesn't just go, oh, okay, I stubbed my toe. Whatever, my toe just hurts. If I stub my toe, what happens? Ah, oh, you start hopping. The whole body has had an experience because of one thing. This is how important it is to make sure that we have this stuff together. It affects everything holistically. Like one person in the body, like the weak chink in the lane, if we have a body of believers and one person's over here doing whatever, whole body is stressed. That's why we should love on each other and make sure that the least are treated like the greatest and the greatest are treated like the least, right? Or the first like the last and the last like the first. How you doing, Monique? So, but let's keep on going. So, coping mechanisms help decrease the side effects of stress. The stress response is triggered by the flight or fight role in your sympathetic nervous system. This causes changes in your body to help you prepare to run away from or face potential danger head on. Side effects of the stress response include increased heart rate. Okay. How you doing, Sister Shirley? Sherry? Right? Increased heart rate, heart beating faster, increased breathing, and usually more shallow, right? And if you do a lot, unless you're trying to get yourself ready to hold your breath to go underwater, if you just eventually you're going to have an episode. Higher blood pressure, right? Increased alertness. So even that's why you might be ready to do some stuff you normally wouldn't do because you're more alert. Heightened senses. Everything feels a little different. High, and even release of glucose into your bloodstream for energy, which is why you could even have a high blood pressure or something like that, because now you have higher sugar levels. You have higher sugar levels because your body's like, yo, right? Because your body stores sugar, like it stores fat, like it stores a lot of stuff. And sometimes your body's storing sugar because it says, hey, we might have an emergency. So if we have an emergency situation, I keep sugar on standby, right? So your body loves sugar. Like this is, they study our bodies, right? They know that we like sugar, fat, and salt, which is why every restaurant you go to is going to offer you sugar, fat, and salt. But these are things that your body even makes sure it holds on to because it might need an emergency situation, right? So the body ties, if you will, the body brings stuff into the storehouse so that if the body needs to be able to come through on it, then it needs sugar. This is why some people, when you're going through something, you're going through sports or you're doing something and you on a real low sugar diet, you don't necessarily always have that extra. Sugar is not a bad thing when put into use correctly, right? All right. So these physiological changes are helpful when you are in a dangerous situation. However, they are also meant to be temporary, right? So if I'm all see, so it's no problem. Like if I go to the gym, I should hit a stride where I say, okay, I got everything ready. I'm ready to go. I've got coping mechanisms. I'm ready to go. How you doing, Bruda? I'm ready to go. I got all these coping mechanisms ready. I'm ready to roll. Like, cool. Okay, cool. I'm ready to go through the stress of picking up weight and doing this or whatever. I've ate correctly. I've got some stuff to pump me up. Whatever you had, your whey protein, whatever it is, you got all this stuff. You got things in place to make sure your body's ready to do certain things, right? But it's only supposed to be what? Temporary. Right? It's only supposed to be temporary. We are not designed to be stressed out all the time. No creation is. Oh, you fine, Bruda. Thank you, appreciate you. So here it goes. So it's only supposed to be temporary. Unfortunately, your body doesn't know the difference between actual danger and emotional stress. That's what we said earlier, right? So if I'm fighting with my family, my parents are getting on my nerves, and I'm stressed out, my body doesn't know the difference between that and I'm about to get in the ring with Tyson Fury. I'm about to be chased by a bear. I'm going to have to jump off a huge building and hope that I can grab something so that I don't fall, many different floors down to the ground. Right? The body doesn't know the difference. It just says, hey, we're stressed. So if I'm stressed out over something quite often, right, then I'm going to come up with coping mechanisms, but the coping mechanisms are supposed to only be temporary. I'm not supposed to always be stressed. So if I have coping mechanisms, I must realize that these coping mechanisms, even if they seem extreme, they're all right as long as they're used in short bursts. Even if they don't seem extreme, they are not designed to be used over and over and over and over again. And some people live by the coping mechanisms because of what you're coping with, right? Some people live with self-deprecating mindset because everybody depreciates their value. So they're always walking around and they don't make sure that they change up. They don't make sure that they get around people who are better for them. And so now here you are always going through the same stress. How you doing, Sister Monica? And going through the same stuff. You'll have the same stuff. You have increased heart rate. You're walking around with increased breathing, high blood pressure. You're walking around with all these things, right? It's not only because of the food you eat, even though obviously that has a lot to do with it. And it's not only because of the food that we eat. It also has a lot to do with what? With the fact that we are stressed. Because when you work out, you're stressed. That's why you have certain things that happen with your body. But you shouldn't be having the same effect on your body when you're just sitting at work. Or you have some people that all they do is work out. This can be dangerous. This can be why you have some people who, and I'm not saying everybody, but you can have some people who start having these health issues and end up like passing out, having heart attacks. Things happen to them when they're younger, right? I'm talking about 40, 50 years old. You say so-and-so was so healthy. They could run miles, they could do, but they were always stressed. This is supposed to be temporary, right? There are some people who are designed where they can do that, but the average human being, this is supposed to be temporary. How you doing, DB? Okay, so unfortunately, your body doesn't know the difference between actual danger and emotional stress. And chronic stress can lead to problems such as, okay, so if you're stressed out, these are some symptoms that you might be dealing with, right? Because your body doesn't know the difference. Your body is stressed. Your body is treating whatever you're going through, your body is treating it as if you're fighting for your life physically. It doesn't know the difference. All right, so if you're stressed, this is why anxiety is something we have to try and stay away from. This is why we have to deal with it. This is why we have to deal with things like depression and other things, because your body gets stressed through these things. You ready? This is why the people who are depressed eventually become sluggish. You have no more energy. You can't keep on going. You say, I don't know what I'm going to do next. Why? Because you were dealing in stress. You were stuck in a stressful situation, and your body's treating it as if you're going through a physical altercation, but you have not stopped having a physical altercation. Matter of fact, why some of you can't sleep, which is one of the things on this list, I'm just going to tell you, is because a lot of you have gone through a problem to where you are fighting sleep. You are fighting when it's time to go to sleep. You are fighting. You are having when you are fighting issues. Your body is so stressed out it can't sleep, because when you close your eyes, you're still fighting the same spiritual battle. Your body is reacting to the spiritual battle, the emotional battle, the psychological battle, the physiological battle. It doesn't know the difference. It just knows we're in a fight. And so you better make sure you got some kind of thing going with you that's put together to protect your right. This is why the law is there to help, because the law doesn't give rights, it protects rights, even your rights to be at peace. A peace that surpasses all comprehension or all other standards that you don't need to be under. All right. So here's side effects. If you are stressed out, it says you will have difficulty sleeping. We just talked about that a little bit. It says you have changes in appetite. Here's something else I want to teach, by the way. When I was teaching in a health career field, and I'm teaching people in the health career field, when we would teach people about symptoms, I want you to know, like, don't be like some people on social media to where you look for symptoms. Some people watch videos just to find symptoms, just to, supposedly clinically, say what they're doing, right? Or say what they're going through, right? And they become their own clinician. What we teach even certified clinicians is that you're going to have to learn how to make sure that people have several side effects, right? So, for example, if somebody's having a heart attack, I'm teaching somebody, how you doing, Miss Ladybug, and everybody coming in, and thank you for whatever that comment was. I was just about to read it, but it got taken, so thank you, appreciate you, right? So when I'm teaching people how to deal with first aid and CPR, let's say somebody's having a heart attack, or at least we think somebody might be having a heart attack. Or let's say, so there's different symptoms. There could be a symptom where somebody has slurred speech. There could be a symptom where somebody has pain in their chest. There can be a symptom where somebody's having, and this can be strokes too a little bit, but somebody's left side might start acting weird or getting tingling. There can be a symptom where somebody can't sit still. There's a symptom where somebody might pass out, whatever the case might be. Now, if I just go and I say, hey, um, you have somebody says, oh, my left side is hurting. My first response is not going to be to treat them like they're having a heart attack. How you doing, Sister Joy? That's not the first response, right? The first response, and this for educational purposes only. I'm not a doctor, but I am somebody who was qualified by the Red Cross to be able to teach this stuff and to teach others, especially with first aid, CPR, amongst other things. So I'm not telling you something that I have zero knowledge of. That being said, this is for educational purposes only. All right. However, if I see somebody who's grabbing like this, my first response is not to automatically say they're having a heart attack, right? What if they're having inflammation in the area close? What if they're having heartburn, right? But not right. What if they're having something else? So I look for other symptoms, right? I look to see if it's not just that. What if their left side's not working? What if they've fallen down? What if they seem to be lumbering, right? What if they're trying to speak to me, but they can't quite speak? I'll look for a few different symptoms put together. So I wanted to say that because a lot of people will hear one symptom and go, that's me, I've got it. I just want to be careful as we're saying this. I'm not trying to teach you to say that if you got one symptom that you have it, right? I'm trying to just show you these are symptoms. And what we would teach people who are going to work in the health career field is that you need to realize people are supposed to have a few different symptoms. Like even when they did the whole thing with COVID, you are not supposed to say that you have COVID because you have just only one thing. Somebody says you have flu-like symptoms or whatever. We're supposed to go through a list of things if we're supposed to, and look, I'm not in the medical field. I'm just telling you how symptoms are supposed to work. They're not supposed to just go, oh, you sneezed, you have COVID, right? Oh, you have flu-like symptoms, or you have a fever, you have COVID, you have this, you have COVID. Some places did that, but that's not what's supposed to happen. What's supposed to happen is, hey, do you have flu-like symptoms? Okay. Do you have a fever? Okay. Are you dealing with sickness? Are you having issue? Did you have a taste? There's a litany. There's a list of things that could not are guaranteed to have, but mean you could have COVID. So if I'm not going to have time to test you, or if I want to make, or you might have something or whatever, but if I get a few things off the list, I go, all right, we're going to treat you like you have COVID, right? Then we might test and find out if you did or didn't. Maybe we don't, because of how busy we are or whatever. We might still treat you as if you have COVID and tell you to go see your doctor and make sure that things are on the up and up from there, right? But I'm supposed to first look at how many symptoms you have on the list that we have, right? Body might ache. There's a whole list of them, right? And once I find out, okay, you have things off the list, then I say we got to treat you as if you have COVID. 35-year battle with sleep. Yeah, how you doing, Sister Snap? Right, and now everybody who's coming on, come on in, appreciate you. So as we're talking about, sure, I just want to make sure as we label these, don't be like, oh, I got one. And even if you have several, I would say still don't necessarily 100% just be like, I have to have this. But I'm just telling you, that's the way we would think about it. So don't find one and be like, oh, he's talking about me. I'm super stressed. I'm talking about. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Just want to make sure. Okay. So difficulty sleeping, changes in appetite, headaches, stomach pain, body aches, rashes, sadness, anxiety, depression, lack of interest in activity. Okay, now watch this. Here we go. Active versus avoidant coping. All right, so coping mechanisms are classifiable as active or avoidant. Active obviously means, well, let's just read it. Active coping means that you recognize the source of your stress and you are taking steps to change the situation or the way you respond to it. So if I'm active, if it's an active coping mechanism, or if it's active coping, I know what's wrong. I've taken time out to see what's going on, and now, right now, because I know what's going on, I'm taking steps. Active coping, avoidant coping, right? But avoidant coping occurs when you ignore the problem or issue that is causing you stress. So there are things that we do active. So if somebody's actively coping, that means that I'm taking steps to progress and come out of it. If somebody's avoidantly coping, right? Avoidant coping means what? That I am doing everything I can to ignore the problem that's causing stress. I can know what's going on and still ignore it, or I might not know exactly what's going on. I know something's wrong, but hey, I'm not going to deal with it. That's avoidant coping. Okay. So we want to put that out. There's people who are active, say, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes to come out of this. There are people that are avoidant and say, you know what? Another day. Yeah, I'm not right. I'm not really doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm kind of sluggish. I'm procrastinating. I'm depressed and blah, blah, blah. But, God's got it, right? A lot of things are done. That's avoidant coping. When I start to avoid, that's avoidant coping. You see that? That's avoidant coping, where I'm going to do everything. I know something's going on, but I'm not going to take steps, right? But active coping is I know what's going on, I take steps. So when it comes to coping mechanisms, there are mechanisms that help you to change things for the better. There's also coping mechanisms, systems in place, the mechanics in place to help you to continue to stay right where you are. And some people prefer to stay right where they are for different reasons. All right, let's keep on going. Right. All right. Coping styles. Two common ways that people cope with stress are problem focused, focused coping, and emotion focused coping. Once again, what are two common ways? Not the only ways, but it says two common ways. Right? Two common ways. Two common ways. How you doing, King? And I see you, beloved. I'm sorry. Right? So two common ways are what? With the dealing with stress are problem focused coping and emotion focused coping. Problem focused coping, problem focused coping aims to change or eliminate the source of your stress. This type of coping works if you have some control over the situation that is causing you stress. Examples of problem focused strategies are specific situations that include what? Here's a situation. You frequently fight with your partner, your spouse, whomever, right? Which causes a stressful relationship. Possible responses, these are ways to deal with it, are what? To seek counseling, set boundaries, or end the relationship, right? That would be, so to seek counseling would be what? Active, right? Because I'm trying to solve it. Okay, to set boundaries would be what? Active. Depending though, if I set boundaries to where I'm just not going to talk about it, don't bring this up, then that's what? That's avoidance. I'm going to avoid it. Okay, then here's another one. Or you might end the relationship. Some people, rather than work through the relationship that could work, right? They don't want to be active. So they decide, hey, I'm not going to put any more stuff towards it. You avoid it, you get rid of it. Sometimes it's you should be active. You should try to be better. You should be pressed. You should learn love languages, but sometimes you don't want to. You should maybe change the habits that you've had for decades. Just because you've been decades into a marriage doesn't necessarily mean your marriage has been righteous. But what a lot of people will avoid it. Some people, maybe you need to be active and in the relationship if you keep getting cheated on, or somebody keeps getting struck, or somebody's going to keep dogging you, or whatever the case might be, right? But these are ways that we can look at coping, and we can tell if it's active or avoid it. As far as it's active, once again, if you're using it to make sure that you make it better, right? Or if it's avoidant if you're trying your best to avoid it. Okay, here's another situation. Your job requires you to do presentations, but public speaking causes you stress. So your job says, hey, if you're going to work here, you're going to have to talk to a bunch of people all the time. Right? And some people say, oh, I don't like talking to people. So here's some possible responses. Practice in front of family or friends. Uh what kind of uh wow, coping. What kind of coping would we call that? If I'm practicing, if I know I got to speak in front of people and I get nervous in front of people, I start practicing in front of friends and family. Would that be active or avoidant? Right? What would that be? Active or avoidant? How you doing, brother Raj? How you doing? Be smart. That'd be active. How you doing, Sharonda? That would be active. Why? Because I'm trying to take care of it. I'm trying to take it head on. Right? Come on. Right? But if I okay, let's go on to the next one. Hire a public speaking coach. All right, that means I've got to be what? Active. And the speaking coach is there to be what? Active, because he's coming to solve or she's coming to solve a problem. And that means also, too, then I can't be avoidant when they show up. If I've hired the speaking coach, then that means that when they show up, they're going to be active. They're going to try to give me things and sometimes even force me. How you doing, Big Brother Thomas? They're going to even sometimes try to force me to do some stuff with my speaking and do some stuff with my voice, give me some warm-ups that might be embarrassing or whatever the case might be, but they're trying their best to be active to help me to come and to get past this. Okay, what's another one? If I'm afraid to do public speaking, here it says take a public speaking course. That's active. Right, these are things that people say I want to be a great speaker, and I might say, well, get some public speaking stuff, take some classes, I'll deal with you one-on-one, let's go. And all of a sudden, oh no, I really don't want to do all that or whatever. Well, then I don't know how you're going to be able to stand in front of y'all's people if you're going to be avoidant in your coping. You see what I'm saying? You can't avoid it if you say that's what you call to do. You say that you called to cook food. Okay, well, you can't be avoidant if somebody says, hey, you might want to learn how to season a little better. No, I don't like, you know what? You just don't like my cooking. I just cook the way I cook, but you're not cooking just for yourself. You're cooking for many. So you might need to learn how to tailor what you do. There might be a group of people. Yeah, they love what you do. Matter of fact, there are some chefs that everybody seems to love everything that they cook, but there's some things that they go into and they know, oh, people don't eat what I cook. So I have to learn how to change what I cook. I have to study outside of it. I have to be active, not avoidant. All right, here's another one. Find a different job that doesn't require public speaking. That would be avoidant. All right. Let's do one more situation. Let's do one more situation. I think we've already done. We got it, but let's do one more situation. You are diagnosed with high blood pressure. Right. So what could you do? Here's a response. You could talk to your healthcare provider about medication options. You could. Right. Okay. That's active. Even if you don't think that you should go to the doctor, whatever, we at least say that's active. Right. Some of you, though, depending on what you believe, you might say, hey, why don't you do herbs and this and that? Maybe it's avoidant. Right? Or maybe somebody could give you herbs to help you. It would actually be better for you than going to the doctor. You would say, well, somebody's avoided when it comes to the herbs, but they're active when it comes to the medicine, whatever, right? So you can exercise regularly. You can go for a walk. You could lift some weights. You could buy a $50 set of weights and have it at your house and just do stuff, right? That's active. You could reduce your salt intake. That's active. We're trying to solve a problem. Next one we'll talk about is what? Emotion focused coping. So this is emotion-focused coping. Unfortunately, it's impossible to avoid stress completely. This is why we said your body will be stressed, and you should have things built up for the specific times your body is stressed. You shouldn't be stressed all the time, but you will go through stress. So watch this. Unfortunately, it's impossible to avoid stress completely, particularly in situations in which you have no control over the source of your stress. Emotion-focused coping strategies can help you change the way you respond to your stress. Examples of emotion focused strategies for specific situations could include, we'll just go over a couple of them. So here's first situation. Your partner is diagnosed with cancer, causing you fear and anxiety, right? Now we could be active or we could be what? Avoidant. So here's some possible responses. Gather information and focus on the facts. And by the way, if you haven't noticed this, technically there's always going to be an active side and an avoidant side. Because watch this, if the possible response to finding out that I have a family member that's going through something, a sickness, and I'm going to be there by their side through it, right? And I'm going to make sure that I don't get stressed because I need them to not get any more stressed than they already are. Then watch this, then I'm going to have to be active in some things and avoid other things. There are certain words that I probably can't use anymore. I need to be avoidant. That's a coping mechanism. That's an avoidant coping mechanism, but it's an avoidant mechanism or avoidant coping, right? There are some things, but there are some other things I'll be active in. I need to be more active in what they're eating, how I'm cooking, also too what I'm eating, because whatever they're eating should be what I'm eating, and I shouldn't be tempting them with stuff that might make them sick, right? So gather information and focus on the facts. Join a support group. Active, right? We have a support group when life happens every other Sunday. Here's another one. Journal your feelings. Journal about your feelings. That's active, very active. I say that to people all the time. You'd be surprised how much if you write something down and then go back and visit it. I need to be better about that myself, about personal stuff, right? All right. Here's another situation, and we'll just read a little bit more, and I think we've got the gist of this for tonight. Praise God. Situation: you are attending a party, but being around a group of people makes you anxious. Here's possible reactions. Practice deep breathing. Be active, right? Now, if you avoid the party, maybe you need to avoid the party, right? But that's avoiding coping. But maybe you avoid the party. Why? Because you don't want to go through that or whatever. But hey, you could practice breathing even before you go or when you go into the room. Nobody needs to know. You don't have to be in front of people, but you could easily be, or even before you talk. Some of you even seen it before we start live sessions. Sometimes I'll be sitting there and I'll be breathing in, and then you even hear me audibly just because sometimes I might not be all the way there, but I know I need to get things going, or I might kind of be worried about what we're talking about and how it's going to be perceived, because I know people who are strangers to what we're doing will probably come in and think that I'm talking about something completely different. So what am I going to do? I'm going to practice deep breathing. You can arrive with a friend or for social support. Active. Plan topics of conversation. Before I go, if I have an issue with being around people, maybe I know that these are things that I'm strong in talking about. So when we start talking this and that, and I see people are trying to say things and they start asking me to open up, I'll have things already in place to lead towards conversations that, even if I'm still nervous about talking to you about it, I'm definitely not nervous about thinking about thus and such. All right, last thing we'll go over tonight: coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms. So there's coping mechanisms, but don't confuse them for defense mechanisms, right? What's the difference? So a coping mechanism and a defense mechanism, these are both terms that are sometimes used interchangeably. In other words, people will just confuse them for each other. However, coping mechanisms can be described as a skill or as skills a person uses intentionally to deal with stressful situations, while defense mechanisms are often automatic or subconscious. In other words, if you're actually using coping mechanisms, you've thought about it, whether they're active or avoidant. But if you're using defense mechanisms, this is something that's just in you. It's a habit. It's something that you probably saw and that you do, or it's something that you've done so much that you don't even know you do it. You have that thing, you have a couple of things that you do that you don't even recognize you're doing until you have a spouse or you with somebody, maybe your children, and they say something like, "Hey, are you nervous?" You say, "Why do you think I'm nervous?" And they know you have a tick, or they know you rub your arm, or they know you scratch your arms like this when you get nervous, or they know that you do some wild stuff, right? That's a coping mechanism, right? If somebody's taking drugs, right? Certain drugs that they're taking or whatever, they begin to right? You might say, hey, you're always scratching like that, blah, blah. And I see the marks and blah, blah. That's a coping mechanism. It's an active one. It's a physical one. It's not an emotional one. This is physical, tied to the emotion, but it's a physical one, but they're having an issue, right? That's a coping mechanism, but that might even necessarily be a coping mechanism. I guess they would call that one a defense mechanism because it's subconscious. You don't even see yourself doing it, right? Nobody walks around and says, hey, if I'm on some kind of drug or on some kind of whatever, I'm going to give it away by doing certain things to my body that you can tell, right? Nobody says that, right? So you wouldn't call it a coping mechanism because a coping mechanism is something that in the West they call conscious, and a defense mechanism is when you have it set up and it's subconscious, right? So when we're going through things, we have the word of Yah, but we have the word of Yah, and the Yah helps us to cope. The word of Yah helps us to cope. Yah is his word, but the word of Yah helps us to cope, and also is a great defense because the law doesn't give rights, the law protects rights. It's the defense of your rights to be at peace. So if you will have times in your life, right? Let it be known, you will have times in your life to where there will be less peace, or there will be times where it feels like there is no peace, and you're going to go through stress, right? But we're trying to build up certain things in our lives that make sure that we are not stressed out all the time. So I invite you to start looking up some things, or start seeing, or even writing out a list, and try to be honest with yourself. Try to go through this sometime, even if you can't write it out. Hopefully you would, but because the shortest pencil is always longer than the longest memory. However, take time out to say, okay, how do I deal with stress? Like when my daughter was yelling at me, what did I do? When my husband was doing that thing I can't stand, what do I do? Right? Matter of fact, when people say to surprise, some people don't like surprises. So when you get surprised, how do you cope? Is it a coping mechanism? Is it a defense mechanism? Is it active? Is it avoidant? Is it emotional? Is it physical? Is it both? Right? These are things that we can look at and try to see if we can do better. Right? So, but I appreciate you guys. I thank you. I'm going to go ahead and take my leave. Like I said, Patreon, we still will make sure some stuff is loaded up for you. And I know it should be tonight, but I know this, but before we start the live session tomorrow, you will have, the Hebrew characters class up on Patreon. You should have a shorter video before then, just for everybody on Patreon. And we thank you guys again for being on. So we appreciate you. We hope that you guys have a great night. Please stay safe. And we really, really thank you. And prayerfully, you continue to do great things. I will see you tomorrow on the live session for the Rising at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. And until then, remember, as always, beloved, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Shalai, shalom. And we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Thank you again. Peace.